listen to the prospect here. Why do you think they said this? And why did you say this? What if you had said this instead? And understand where they're like giving buying signals. And then if they are giving buying signals, don't miss that. Confidence is like key. Once I got that meeting booked and I actually hit my quota for the first time, like my confidence went through the roof.
They ask these great questions. The prospect gives them all they need to know and pretty much arms them with everything to be able to provide a good solution based on what they're selling. And then they just go back to their script and say like, here's all the things that we do. That's not solving the problem that you just identified.
Like, did you not, the first 15 minutes of that call, right? Like that's information. That's gold. When the prospect is talking to you and they're telling you about their unique situation, that's gold. You got to use that.
My name's Eric. I'm the founder and CEO of Parakeet. Here with me, I have Jeremy, who's the co-founder and VP of Business Development at Pitchfire. Jeremy, thanks for joining me today, man. Super pumped to have you here. Would love to just learn like a little bit more about like you and your background as a founder, how you got started, and like where this idea kind of came about.
Yeah, sure thing. I mean, I'm a first time founder. It's funny. I've just kind of like each company that I am at, it gets smaller. So like a few years ago, I was at a company called Navisite, and they were about 1,000 employees, and were actually owned by Time Warner Cable and Charter, which combined to form Spectrum Communications, which was like 80,000 employee company. So really big company. Then I went to Lead IQ, which was like, when I started there, we were only like 25 employees or so. And then when I left, we grew to like 150, with a few years that I was there. But like, I went from like a big company to a smaller company. And then now at Pitchfire, I was like employee number 3. So I keep going smaller, I guess, just kind of keep getting more deeper into that, like that startup, more startup-y, and less big company-y. And I don't know if that's purposely or just, I think maybe it just kind of worked out that way. But my background is actually kind of interesting, even before all those companies. Maybe you can tell just from like the way I talk and stuff, but my background, like I was in sports broadcasting, and that's what I wanted to do when I was in college. I went to University of New Hampshire and I broadcasted UNH football, basketball, hockey games, and I had a sports talk radio show. And even for a while, when I was like doing different sales jobs after college, I would do like full-time like sales jobs during the day, and then like nights and weekends I would cover and broadcast high school sports games all around the state of New Hampshire. But then it just kind of, what happened was I wasn't really making any money doing that. And it was getting to the point where I wanted to just like spend more time with like friends and family and stuff during those nights and weekends. So I just kind of like stopped doing that, the sports broadcasting stuff and sports journalism. And then just kind of got, and also at the same time, I was getting better at like sales and getting more successful at it, and wanted to like focus more of my time on that as well. So it's like a lot of things that were going on. But yeah, that's when I started to get better at sales and started to focus more on sales. Because in the beginning, like I was actually really bad at sales. I got fired from like 3 or 4 different sales jobs when I first got out of college, when I was like in my 20s. And I was like, what the hell am I doing with my career? So it's actually, my background's pretty interesting in that a lot of people, they just kind of like, they're super successful right from the get-go, and they're just like, get a sales job out of college, and then few years later, they just keep getting all these promotions. Then they are like a VP of sales or a head of marketing, and then they're a founder or something like that. Or maybe they just like are a founder within, like right out of college pretty much. But I had like a lot of trials and tribulations and like some successes, but like more failures, to just kind of like find myself and what I wanted to, like, what was I actually good at, what I actually wanted to do for a career in my 20s. Then I kind of just, I guess, grew up when I got more towards my 30s and figured things out, but it took a while. So that's kind of like a little bit of the background, but like in terms of how I kind of got here at Pitchfire as one of the co-founders. So Ryan O'Hara is our CEO. I worked with him at Lead IQ, where I was there for like 5 years. And he was actually a big reason why I joined Lead IQ as well. So he's been a reason why I joined my last two companies. And it's funny, he is also from New Hampshire. He lives in Newmarket now, but he's from Hampstead, the next town over from where I live. And he also went to UNH, the University of New Hampshire. And I used to work at the Market Basket, a grocery store in Plastow. He didn't work there. Ryan didn't work there, but he had some friends because he went to Pinkerton Academy. He had some friends that worked there. So we actually like had some friends of friends and knew each other since I was like 18, 19 years old. And we'd like hang out and a bunch of us would play like pickup football games on Thanksgiving and stuff. So we've known each other since then. And now I'm like 39. So it's funny. We've known each other for like 20 years. But it's not just that I'm like joining companies with my friend. Like I wouldn't do that. Like it's also like I believe in the mission. And I joined Lead IQ because I was like really, I found a lot of the marketing stuff he was doing on LinkedIn really compelling. I was like, oh my gosh, some of this stuff is really like out of the box and innovative. They're getting, they're sending like music videos to prospects and getting meetings with them that were like rock videos. They were really innovative and cool. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the coolest marketing thing I've ever seen. So it's not even like, oh, I just joined this company because my friend worked there. It's like, no, he's my friend, but also he did like the coolest marketing campaign I've ever seen. So it's kind of both of those things. And then when I was at Lead IQ and Ryan was working there too, like we just were like really successful. Like, I mean, I booked 69 meetings in a single month when I was a BDR there. And then I went from BDR to account executive and then was closing some of the biggest deals, like the biggest deal in company history at the time. So I was like having some good success. A lot of that was like just kind of piggybacking on the marketing he was doing, running the marketing team. He would do content and like all these LinkedIn posts and videos and podcasts and stuff. I'd see the comments and the likes of that on LinkedIn and then reach out to those people and get a lot of those meetings and close deals and stuff. And I was doing content as well. So you're kind of like this like Batman and Robin team. And like that just developed, we both developed this following on LinkedIn. We just kind of been this team, not just being friends, but like sharing like a lot of the same visions and stuff in terms of like building a following on LinkedIn and stuff. When he started Pitchfire, at first he told me about it and I was like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it sounds kind of cool. Yeah, whatever. But then we had a few more conversations about it. And the more he explained it to me and shared the vision for it, I was like, oh, this might actually really work. You might really have something here. It's like, I was like, it's a no-brainer for both sides, for buyers and sellers. Like, and I just kind of kept asking more questions about it. And then I joined and we had a success story in the beginning that really hit home for me as well. That was like, okay, yeah, this thing could really take off. In the beginning, we were trying to raise funding and I wasn't even trying to like make calls for Ryan to try to get investors and funding. I actually reached out to a prospect just to try to like sell to them, to get them on as a customer. But they were a CEO of a company that had like 500 employees, had already went public. And all I was doing for prospecting, at least this individual contact, was just kind of like working my network. Like I was connected to him already on LinkedIn. So I figured he might already know about me, maybe already knew about Pitchfire. That's just kind of basic stuff. Like if you have like say 14,000 connections, well, you run a list on Sales Navigator to see which of those people could be a good fit in your ICP. And so that's all I did. I reached out to him and I cold called him. So that's like one little lesson here. Cold calling still works a little bit. Doesn't work great. Like from my personal experience, like, the hit rate obviously is low, like 1 out of every 20, every 50, 100, whatever calls will get you that meeting. But this was a call that the prospect answered when I cold called him. And he ended up not only becoming a user, but an investor that was the lead investor for our seed funding round.
That's awesome.
So that's a pretty good success story. Like I explained it to him. He asked a couple of questions and then he was like, you guys investing? Are you guys looking for investors? And then I introed him to Ryan, and then, he invested a substantial amount of, capital, in the next few months. So that's kind of, I know, a long-winded answer, but, kind of my background and how I kind of got started over here.
That's awesome, man. Super cool. That's a great story. I'm curious, like you said, when you first started sales, like you kind of sucked at it, and then
Yep.
something changed. You said you like kind of grew up a little bit, but like
hmm
there must have been something. Have you kind of reflected back on what that was, like what you started doing differently to really figure out how to sell?
There's a few things that I attribute it to. I mean, one is just kind of like growing up and maturing. Like, I just wasn't ready yet. Like, when I was only like 22, 25, whatever, 24, like I didn't really have the sales skills yet or the business acumen yet. I think part of it that I was like a late bloomer or whatever when it comes to getting better at sales and business and stuff was I didn't major in business in college, which I kind of like regret a little bit. I know like I went to UNH and they have a pretty good business program, but I was a communication major because again, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So
Mhm.
that's why I was a communication major, even though UNH didn't really have like sports journalism classes. So maybe that wasn't a great decision. So that's why I kind of was behind the eight ball a little bit, because of that. And then just like over time, since I was behind the eight ball, over time I just had to develop those sales skills through just like experience by like working in the field, like having different like sales jobs and having like a lot of failures and stuff. But I also had a really good manager. I'll shout him out. I've done so on a couple other podcasts in the past, where this has come up. Tom Stewart. He was a manager I had at a company called the Chameleon Group. That was where I was working right before Navisite. So I was like 26, 27 or so at the time, and was still kind of like figuring things out what I was going to do in, for a career. And when I actually landed at Chameleon Group was when I was pretty much ready to give up on sales. I already got laid off from like 3 or 4 different sales jobs previously. And I was like, I'll just do marketing or HR or something. I don't want to do sales anymore. Like I kind of was just like, had this like I was like scarred from all these failures and getting let go from all these companies and having interviews where they just would say no, we're not hiring you and stuff. So, but like I needed to pay the bills, so I just took that job. Like there was no other job basically that I could get at the time. And Community Group was an outsourced SDR firm. I think most people probably understand what that means. And so the first month that I actually hit my quota there, Tom did a really good job of like call coaching me. So he took me into the conference room and played a few recordings of some of the cold calls that I did because I was like a BDR there, and he just was doing call coaching stuff where he would play the recording, pause it at certain points, and then be like, okay, listen to what you say here, and then listen to the prospect here. What do you think? Why do you think they said this? And why did you say this? What if you had said this instead? And the main things specifically that he helped me with in that session, it was like a 25, 30-minute session, breaking down those calls, was listening better to what the prospect is saying to understand where they're like giving buying signals. And then if they are giving buying signals, don't miss that. Don't miss that. Drill down on that just a little bit more to like uncover a little bit deeper pain. Ask like another question to clarify. Oh, what do you mean by that? Like, and what's the impact on your business that's causing and stuff like that. Get a little bit deeper. And then the other thing was just like closing better on at the end of that call, not being too, I was being too soft. I would say stuff like maybe, oh, we can maybe have a call with my sales specialist that can, discuss this further with you. We can maybe set up a call, or, oh, I don't know. Yeah. I was just like, that's just basic stuff that like, somebody who's new to that type of role, they're just, they're new to it. They're just more of a junior level type person, just does that. It's common stuff, but I got a lot better at being more confident and closing more assertively on getting that meeting booked.
Mhm.
Um, those are kind of the two main things that he helped me with. And after that, I hit quota for the first time. I stayed like we worked till 5. I stayed till 5:30 on a Friday I was so determined to get that one more meeting booked to get to my quota. And then I hit my quota like 10 months in a row after that. I was like the best.
Nice.
We had like 30 sales BDRs there. I was like the best one, like 6 months in a row. My whole career kind of changed after that. So that's partly what I attribute it to too.
Man, that's awesome. That's super cool. We
Mhm.
have, I don't know if you know this. So Parakeet has it's an outbound as a service team,
Mhm.
and which is essentially outsourced
Yep.
SDRs.
Mhm.
Our team, like a lot of our SDRs, they are like fairly green, either like fresh out of school or like transitioning careers. And we put a lot of emphasis into training. And
Mhm.
what you just described, we see that a lot where someone's like, it's tough. Like it's not easy out the gate. So they're like really trying to figure things out. And we spend a lot of time coaching. And then one day for like, if they're really dedicated and like want to make it work, one day it just clicks. And it's
Mhm.
kind of what you just described.
Oh
And
yeah,
and
it
I
just
love
clicked, and then my confidence really went up, especially like when you're in that stage of your career, like just like early stage, like a junior, like lower level type of role, confidence is like key.
mhm,
If you're like struggling and not really hitting your numbers, not getting a lot of meetings booked, you're getting rejected, like then the confidence can really be low. But then once I got that meeting booked and I actually hit my quota for the first time, like my confidence went through the roof. And then, like I said, I hit quota like 10 months in a row after that. Literally each month it happened, my confidence went up and up and
mhm.
up. And then like I was like, I'm the man. Like I felt like and you could hear on the phone like my tone, sounded more confident as well.
Totally.
And then it just kind of things took off from there.
Super cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't wait to share this with our team. Like our team would love to hear your story too.
Mhm.
But yeah, we sit all the time, and one of my favorite things that we find is like when someone books a meeting, usually like when they get one, they start rolling in the same day after that because like confidence just spikes.
Mhm. Oh
So it's
yeah,
like meeting one, like they book a meeting like 10 in the morning. All of a sudden, it's like 10:30. They're on meeting two.
exactly.
11,
Yeah,
11:30.
I've been the same way as well. Like my meetings, I'll either have a day with 0 or I'll have like days with like 3. I've had that month I mentioned when I was at Lead IQ, I booked 69 meetings in a month. Like I had some days where I had like 4. Because
Awesome.
it just like you get momentum. The momentum builds and you get kind of in a rhythm with it. And that confidence grows. But then also you start to see patterns of like what's working, what's not working. Like if you all of a sudden book like 2 meetings in the same day over email, you'll start to piece together, you know, oh wait, those last 3 people that booked a meeting, I'm seeing some trends and patterns where this type of messaging is working.
Hmm.
They're all having this objection or they're saying this. I would look at their emails when they say yes to booking a meeting. What are they actually saying? Because like when I was at Lead IQ, like we had like 3 different pitches or 3 different value props or whatever. Or there was like certain competitors, and then depending on I'd find trends. Oh, we're doing better where if they have this competitor. Oh, okay, let's find other companies that use that vendor and go after them. Or if they all are saying this, this value prop is resonating, but not the other two. Oh, use the one that's working. You
Right.
start to kind of get in a rhythm with. But if everybody's saying no, then like you don't know what works.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
more you have those wins and successes, the more you can see like what works and find the trends and commonalities with them. And I think that's another thing that's made me really successful at just like prospecting and sales in general over the years is just like as the years go by, you just get more of that experience and figure out you now have more of that data that
Hmm.
tells you what's working and what's not working. So you just kind of just keep pulling from that and drawing from that experience. And
Totally.
like the next email, like literally when I get off this call right now, the next email that I send, I'm pulling from all those different experiences and figuring in terms of what's working and what's not working. when I send that email, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of something like, maybe it's just like not that profound of a thing. Like, oh yeah, everybody probably does that. But like, I feel like I'm better at that than a lot of other people that do sales at just kind of that critical thinking and putting the pieces together, putting two and two together of like understanding, okay, the last 10 people, I've talked to, this has resonated, this hasn't resonated. So I'm going to say this to this person based on the type of company they work at and what their role is at that company. Comparing that to the last 10 people that I've talked to, which of those people they're more in common with between them and their company. Like it's a
Mhm.
lot to compartmentalize. So some sales reps, they might just get confused and not really execute it well, or they might be overwhelmed by all that and they just blast out the same email to every single person,
Exactly.
so it's kind of a skill at being able to kind of take all that information, process it, and deduce it, and then boom, reach out to the person, and whether it's cold outreach or on your next call that you have,
Mhm.
and be able to approach that next sales conversation accordingly based on all the different information that you have, like it's
Yeah.
not easy, but I think that's one thing that kind of separates good salespeople from bad ones.
Yeah. I agree. I think you nailed it. Like being able to do the things like connect all the different dots
Hmm.
and then apply it towards future outreach. Like not a lot of sellers do it. And I,
Hmm.
I would say like that's why not a lot of sellers have been super successful lately because the buyer profiles are a whole lot different and they're harder to break through today.
Hmm.
Much
And
harder
then
than they
when you're on a
were.
call, a live call with a prospect, you're also process all that information that you had from previous interactions and previous calls, previous conversations at that company, but also at previous companies. Like whether it might be a cold call I got hung up on at like 2 companies ago, I'll kind of remember. Oh wait, don't do that. Don't say that.
Yeah.
For a
Yeah.
company now, 8 years later. But when I'm live on a call, they're giving me new information in real time and asking me questions, giving me objections, and saying pain points that they have. So, live in real time on that call, I need to piece together what they're saying to me in real time. Like I was on a call with somebody, and recently where they said something back to the prospect, and I was like, well, are you not listening to them? Like they just kind of said this, and based on the thing that they said 5 minutes ago, like I probably would have said something differently. Like, are you
Mhm.
even listening to that? So it's that as well, being able to like really that's just active listening, but being able to piece together um, what they're saying in real time. And and I've been in positions where I've been sold to as well, and then the seller is selling to me, and I'm like, are you not listening? It seems like
Right.
what you just said would probably, it's like you're just regurgitating the same pitch, that you kind of just have this pitch deck. It's a deck, it's the pitch that you're supposed to say to every prospect, but not every prospect is the same. There's like
Yeah.
a script, but like there's a balance between kind of sticking to that script so you're staying on course and not like every call just like going all over the place and jumping around.
Mhm.
There's a balance between keeping things on track and getting the prospect from point A to point B the right way, but not just being like a scripted robot,
Totally.
using active listening. So it's
Yeah.
all stuff, it's not easy, but that's obviously why like not everybody can do sales. It's not for everybody, and a lot of
Yeah.
people aren't that good at it that try it. And I was bad at it at first, but then I just kind of got more experience and over time figured it out.
Yeah. That's cool. And I agree. Like I see it all the time. I call it the show up and throw up, where
Yep.
someone goes, let's say a seller goes to discovery. They ask these great questions. The prospect gives them all they need to know and like pretty much arms them with everything to be able to provide a good solution based on what they're selling. And then they just go back to their script and say, like, here's all the things that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not solving the problem that you
Yeah.
just
Like,
identified in
did
the
you
discovery
not?
call.
So, what the first 15 minutes of that call, right? Like,
Complete waste.
that's information. That's gold. When the prospect is
Exactly.
talking to you and they're telling you about their unique situation and their pain points and challenges and priorities, like that's gold. You got to
Mhm.
use that, and not
Exactly.
just gloss over it. Like I'll be on calls with a prospect and I'm taking lots of notes, and like, there's obviously now these days, there's like note taker apps and stuff like that do it for
Mhm.
you. But like, I still kind of like to write it down, like the key things. If it's a really key thing, I'll write it down and even underline it in my notes and make sure that I'm putting that, in the CRM so I remember it. Otherwise, I won't remember. I'll probably
Yeah.
might remember some of it, but I'm not going to remember all of it. So I take pretty thorough, diligent notes too when I'm on calls.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, cool. Jeremy, I want to dig into like go to market a little bit more in terms of like what's working, what's not working, and really Pitchfire is a multi-sided marketplace. So how are you going about prospecting? What does go to market look like for you? And like what's working today? Because I know that like go to market has changed so much just in the last year. So I always love to like dig into learn a little bit more.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of different directions you can go with that, but I mean, I would say like a big thing that I try to do is like leveraging our network, leveraging my network. I got like 14, 15,000 connections, so it's that balance between like, if you imagine like a graph or chart where there's two kind of, there's two like up here and then over here, right? And like one of them is your ICP. Like the higher up on this graph, part of the graph is how like that how much they fit the ICP. Like there's a dream account that's the perfect person, that's the right contact at the perfect account. And then there's like ones in the middle. Oh yeah, like they're kind of a fit. And then bottom, not really a fit, And the higher you go up, the more that's like your perfect account and just the right decision maker there. So part of it is just like that balance between always understanding how much they fit your ICP, and then over here it's like how it's like a familiarity and connection. Like you're like relying on your network. Yeah, I
Mhm.
got 14, 15,000 connections, but not all of them are equal. A lot of my connections are people that I don't even really know, barely at all. Some of them are people that I know very well. It's not just the connections, but also people that I've sold to in the past. If they're a connection, which they obviously would be a connection, I'm not going to close a deal with somebody and like I'm not even connected to them on LinkedIn. So like if they're a connection and I've sold to them in the past, then that's higher up on that part of the graph. That's more of a stronger connection. Like there's some people that have bought from me at like multiple times. Like when I was at Lead IQ, they may have changed jobs and bought from me again. Like,
That's cool.
so it's still like a familiarity where also at Pitchfire, a big part of our go-to-market strategy is not just getting new customers, but getting existing ones to use the product more. A, use the product more, but then also B, upsell / expand to get more people from their company using it, which is a big part of our strategy. Like there's around 3,000 users and there's around 3,000 companies. So a lot of it is just like, oh, great, we got one person at Amazon using us. Okay, like, but they have like 100,000 employees. How many more can we get? Like a lot of it is that expansion stuff. And so they're higher up on that part of the graph if they're an existing user, like maybe they're an existing user and they also bought from me in the past when I was at Lead IQ, and they were on Ryan's podcast when he was at Lead IQ. Oh,
Right.
okay. And both me and Ryan are really familiar with that person as well. Oh, okay. Yeah, he's already a user, but they have 20 other employees. Like, let's get them on. Like, that might be what I do literally after this call right now. Like, like that's kind of what I'm thinking. And so it's just kind of that balance between, oh yeah, like maybe this person I know really well. I've known them for a long time, but their company's just not a good fit. And maybe there is a software that does that kind of stuff for you, but like some of that stuff, like there's no way like a software can automate that completely. Like the critical
Mhm.
thinking of knowing like how well do I actually know this person? How long have I known them? how many different companies have they bought from me, from like only a human being can do some of that, so some of it's kind of like manual, just kind of running lists on Sales Navigator and doing like that critical thinking, and then figuring out, oh, okay, I'll put them on this list, and and reach out to them. So that's kind of part of it, is that that expansion, trying to land and expand stuff. Like, instead of reaching out to somebody cold, well, we've already got 3,000 users. Let's get them using the product more. Let's,
Nice.
it's kind of like, get them using the product more. Once they are using the product more, then let's try to expand their account and get more people from their company on using it, right? Because we wouldn't try to expand their account if they're not even using it. They'd be like, we've actually tried to do that a little bit. And they're like, oh, well, I actually haven't even been using it. Like, how does this thing work? And I'm like, oh, okay, you're probably not going to like try to intro me to your CEO to get more people from the company on if you don't even know what the heck it is,
Right.
So that's a progression of like looking at the user data and the user analytics and seeing like how much they're using it, getting them to adopt it more, then expand them. But then also like getting new users. For getting new users, we still do some cold outreach here and there, like a little bit of like cold calls, cold emails. Like, again, we had that success story I mentioned earlier, with like cold calling the person that ended up investing a bunch of money in the company. So there's some successes like that, but there's a lot of not successes with just like traditional cold outreach. Just like, if they don't know me at all, they don't really know us at all. Like just cold calls, cold emails, cold LinkedIn DMs, just like haven't really been working much at all. Another thing on Sales Nav, I know a lot of people talk about like transplanted champions, and like, they bought from you, they switched companies, and then, you hit them up again. Like, that's obviously something we do. But another thing another list that I've been using that's worked pretty well, and this isn't anything too groundbreaking. I'm sure a lot of companies do this, but in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you can, run a list that's a filter of people that are following your company on LinkedIn. It's a basic thing, but like that's super helpful. Like, that helps you with your targeting and figuring out, okay, our ICP's got like 20,000 contacts. Who should I reach out to? Well, there's 900 of them that are following us on LinkedIn. Okay. Who out of that list have we not reached out to yet? And well, out of those 900, maybe not all of them are a great fit anyways, though. Like, let's take that list and then filter it by companies with 50 plus employees. Which ones are director level and above? Now we have a pretty good list. Now you eyeball that list and we're like, oh, well, these companies actually are not really that great of a fit. Maybe they're kind of a competitor or whatever. Now we've got like a pretty good list. I'll hit that up for the next week, and that's some low hanging fruit. So I'll pause there. That's just kind of some of the stuff that we're working on.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Like what you just described with pulling your followers, like that follow the company page, sounds like common sense, but I don't think a lot of people actually do.
Oh
it
yeah, probably not. No, yeah. Some people are doing it, but probably a lot of companies aren't really doing that. Yeah.
And it's something that probably only takes, I mean, it's not like really easy to do, but it's also like not difficult. So it might take 30 minutes to an hour to like pull that list and then really refine it, narrow it down to ICP, and then like start the outreach channels to it. But once you do it, you have like a rock solid prospecting list or target list. So it's cool. It's cool that you're like working, like you're the definition of working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually use that phrase quite a bit, when I if I'm on when I've been on other podcasts and stuff like that too, and also I keep it really simple. If I run that list, my outreach is very simple. Like, I'm not really doing that much research. Like, at that point, if I already know, I refine the list, I know that they're probably a good fit and stuff. Like, my message is literally just like, hey, Bob, I notice you're following our company LinkedIn page. Figured that might mean you're interested in learning more. Is that the case? Question mark. Jeremy, send. Like, that's literally what I say. And like, it usually gets some responses. Not the response rates aren't like through the roof, but there's some responses here and there. But like, it's just kind of short and like to the point and conversational. Like, I mean, just kind of like calling it out. Like, like, I mean, there must be some level of interest there. Like, I don't just willy nilly like follow random companies, like,
Yeah.
unless there's, and you just kind of see what they say. And then if they don't respond, then you might like your next attempt, might elaborate a little bit more on like what's in it for them, like why should they take a meeting, something like that. But you shouldn't need to, at least in the first one or two messages, need to like explain too much because they're following your company,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
And are you automating any of this stuff, or are you like manually firing off these like LinkedIn messages and sounds like emails and maybe some cold calls?
Yeah, I mean that part of it is just manual. I mean, we could automate that, because like since that is such a simple message, right? Like if that's the type of message, it's not personalized, right? Like you could just batch and blast, kind of automate and segment, and then boom, and then that way we just we could. We've done that a little bit. We've taken Ryan's all his list of connections. We've taken his list of all of his connections and then kind of segmented it a little bit and then ran kind of a bulk campaign and had some success with that, where actually using our own product, where we're offering money, our product, you offer money to the prospect as incentive for them to answer the pitch.
Right.
So we'll kind of like eat our own dog food and actually use that at his prospects and just offer them $25 to answer the pitch.
That
Um,
works pretty well, or
and
it works pretty
so
well.
we've tried that with Ryan's connections. With mine, I've mainly just kind of done it manually, but I, probably should try to like do a more automated, because then we could scale it more, obviously, like if we've got 900 people following us and then we remove the ones that might not be that great of a fit, well, that's still a list of like 400 or 500. Like for me to manually reach out with that message that's just kind of a canned message, it
Hmm.
probably would make more sense to just kind of automate that message to all 400 of those people. So I've mainly just been doing it manually right now, but that's because like I'm reaching out. I want to reach out to them on LinkedIn, and I
Right.
know that there's different tools and stuff that allow you to do like LinkedIn automation, LinkedIn automated messages, but we're not using any of those, at least right now. A lot of
Makes
those
sense.
things, kind of cost money, and we're trying to raise funding, raise more funding right now. So we're kind of, really like bootstrapping it kind of thing, and not spending a lot on stuff.
Well, Jeremy, it sounds like you're not only crushing it from a IC role, like just crushing new sales, but also have some really cool strategies and like tips and tricks along the way. For our audience, like what's the best way for them to follow you if they want to follow along? And like how can they find you?
Yeah, just look me up on LinkedIn. If you type on LinkedIn Jeremy L, I should pop up, or start typing my last name Lev. You shouldn't have to type the whole thing for me to pop up. I'm the one with the flamingo jacket there, and I also do like LinkedIn videos where I wear basketball throwback jerseys as
Love it.
well. I got this one on because the Pacers, they won in the NBA Finals last night. Which I'm going to do a LinkedIn post today because there's some cool takeaways, as it relates to sales with the Pacers, because they're just like an underdog, and they just like they're scrappy, and they believe in themselves, even if so as a company, if you're like an underdog and maybe you're going up against like a really established, like there's another company in your space that's like dominating or whatever, just like you can believe in yourself to kind of take them down and be scrappy and stuff like that. But they also really
Love it.
work together as a team, so that's kind of shows like the value of teamwork and stuff. But anyways,
Mhm.
yeah, look me up on LinkedIn. That's kind of the best way. Or just check us out pitchfire.com too.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, Jeremy, thanks so much, man. It was great to get to know you. Great to chat with you today. And thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for having me, Eric.